morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Andy Serling, soon to be joined by David Aragona from the Daily Racing Form. Sunday card, an 8-race card after our Saturday. Of course, Mr. Buff, an impressive performance, a 102 buyer for him. And I don't even know that his career-high 102 buyer does justice to a performance where he set a fast pace. Dave and I will touch on that, and we'll talk briefly about yesterday's Pegasus. Not the most compelling of results. I think the handicap division will be more interesting as the year goes on. Regardless, head over to Naira Bets if you're not a member. Sign up. We'll match up to $200 deposit bonus. Use the promo code Big A. The Big A calling the first 2 races today, giving us those changes early. We'll be doing the changes after the show as well. Also a $10 bonus if you bet $100 or more out at Golden Gate Fields. I like that Fields. I haven't been there. Have you been to Golden Gates?
Never been there.
Yeah. When I went, last was in San Francisco. Bay Meadows was still open. I think they were running, but I didn't get out there.
Yeah, I've never been to a California track, actually.
No,
I've been
Santa
to California, but never to Santa Anita. I've got to get out there one of these days.
I love Santa Anita. I think Santa Anita is as nice a track as you'll find.
It looks beautiful on screen.
It's great, and there's something about walking into it on a beautiful day with the mountains behind you. Mm-hmm. I was overwhelmed. I've been there many times, and I love Santa Anita. Any thoughts on any of yesterday's races? I know that we're both big Mr. Buff fans.
Yeah, Mr. Buff ran great. I mean, I don't think people realize how fast the pace of that race was because it was a small field. But I mean, they were sending Laytona after him early, and Mr. Buff, I mean, I think they did the right thing by sending him to the lead from the rail. And he proved that he can withstand pressure and keep going that distance. I mean, it looked like multiple horses closing from the back were just going to roll past him, but he just has the stamina to go along with that speed. Just a really cool horse.
And I also think that Junior, who usually is so confident with him, he realized top of the stretch, kind of shook him up, and I thought for a second, the way Junior was riding him almost, I thought for a second, Junior is a little worried because the horses chasing, you say, they just evaporate around the 5/16 pole of the quarter pole, and the closers, the 2 longest shots on the board, were the ones doing some running. But it turns out that Mr. Buff, it didn't really matter. He just kept on going. And you or another friend of mine made the point to me that maybe races like the Brooklyn would be perfect for him because why can't he just ration it out and just keep sort of grinding out those fractions? He's an awfully tough horse.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he runs as far as the races that they put him in, and he's been able to turn off more in the early going of his races as he's gotten older. I think that's really helped him. It allows him to finish a little stronger, so maybe they could stretch him out further.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with him. As far as races in Florida, they sort of knew Mucho Gusto was going to run yesterday. He was a surprising favorite, and maybe it was more of a lack of trust for higher power who finished last, and he and Tax, I think, were last and second to last. But Bob Baffert, they just think about Bob Baffert, they show up.
Yep.
Especially on big days. But Bob's horses, they show up. And you say it, people will say, yes, I know. But I think it's hard to always show up on the big days, and Bob does.
No, I mean, credit to him for, and the horse that he was working with, I mean, I never would have thought of Mucho Gusto as the kind of horse that could win a race like the Pegasus. Now, obviously, it wasn't the toughest Pegasus that we've ever seen.
Sebastian Villain finished second,
to say the least.
Could it have been?
Yeah. But no, I mean, he's gotten more out of this horse than I think anybody would have expected.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially coming off, and to be fair, I thought he ran very well in the Travers. And an underrated good performance in the Travers. It was his Oklahoma Derby that just seemed to be such a
made you a little
poor effort that a little bit questionable. And Zulu Alpha, quite a run up the rail.
I mean, he got the trip.
Tyler Gaffalione.
Yeah, we were saying beforehand. I mean, that was a race that was just going to be a rider's race, and Gaffalione. I mean, drawing the rail certainly helped, and having the horse take you into the race also helped. But I mean, he gave him a perfect ride.
And clearly, Frankie Dettori has paid attention to the ridiculous riding around here, where it doesn't matter how big the purse is, nobody wants to show any speed. There were about 7 speeds in the Pegasus Dirt Race, and the speeds ran around the racetrack together. But Frankie knew he could clear, and it was a very good ride with the filly. She just doesn't seem to want to win under any circumstances.
No, Magic Wand, she always runs well. She's just, what now, 3 for 23 lifetime with, I mean, I think 9 seconds. She just is not a winning type, but she's a really admirable horse.
She has a Horse of the Year second campaign. If they gave an award out for the sort of worldwide second, Horse of the Year for second, she might be that horse because she has, I mean, it's scary. Look
I
at
think
her
this was
PPs,
I think this was 13 races that she ran between last year's Pegasus and this year's Pegasus, and she had visited like 5 different countries.
It's unbelievable, and she runs well every time. She's really a very cool racehorse. Race number 1 today. I was going to try to be kind of cute in this race, and I think you and I ended up in the same opinion. For me, I think Fast Break actually ran a lot better than some people might have thought last time. And the more I watched his last race and thought about it, because he really got broken by a good horse in Kid Bourbon who came back with a nice performance in Florida and a subsequent effort. And I think going a mile, people see he finished 4th in there. He far and away ran the second best race. And I just think that effort is better than the ones here. He probably stalks the 5-step to the bank. I just thought he was best.
Also, he's a horse that I don't think really wants to go that far. He showed it too back at Monmouth when it seemed like he had that race won at the 8th pole, and then he just hit a wall at the end and allowed a horse to come back on him who he had about a length advantage on. And I just think he's going to appreciate the turn back to 7 furlongs, and he seems to be in better form than his main rival, Spice Road.
I agree. Now, I'm assuming the track is muddy but harrowed,
Yeah, I was
right?
looking up in the press box. It's
so,
harrowed.
you know, that's a lot different than a muddy and sealed. And I know Spice Road has handled wet tracks before, and in all fairness to him, he was involved with, with chasing that monster performance by Communicator last time. I don't think he's impossible. And Joseph Lee, he's an assistant to Kieran, right? Who's
Yes.
now in charge of the horses in New York.
Yeah, all the horses that he's left in New York.
Right. So, I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if he wins. I just thought the 2 was better of the 2.
I agree with you.
And, we both wanted to pick our horse, Tri St. Lorenzo. So I say Lorenzo does get a rider change, but I just don't know if he's good enough. He didn't break last time. It wasn't as badly behaved.
No, he was just
last
sluggish after that.
Yeah.
He's got to show a little more speed, and he's got to run considerably faster to beat those top 2 favorites.
I totally agree. Race number 2. I guess in race number 2, the question becomes whether or not you want to be kind of a wise guy like me, and I did take some wise guy shots today. Timely Tradition is probably going to win this race, and I think the pace projector plays an important role because you have to think Henrik's going to put her on the lead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like she's some filly, or mare rather, that is a need-the-lead type or has even been particularly close to the pace in the fast, but she can be in a stalking position, and she's done so in races that have featured much faster paces than this race is likely to, because you go through this field and even horses that once had speed like Might Be and First Forever just seem to have totally lost it. So
agree.
The lead is there for the taking unless Let Me Take This Call is aggressively ridden by Jose Lezcano.
I thought that there was a possibility that could happen. I thought Jose, and it seems like Might Be just doesn't have it anymore either. And I also wonder with Might Be, who I kind of originally wanted to take a shot with, I think she's better when she can control going longer.
I mean, I'll say, I watched her last race. Declan Carroll was riding right out of the gate, and she was just going nowhere.
I agree. I watched the same thing, and Declan is an aggressive rider. And I remember thinking, because she was entered and scratched, I picked her in some spot going a mile where she was scratched out of it, where it probably would have been just another bad pick. But I remember thinking, I wonder, could Declan have taken a hold of her? And I remember from that time as well. As far as World Riot, a problem with World Riot is that the horse is an ex Norman McKnight, and that's going to come up later in the show as well. He's a very tough guy to claim from. I don't know that she ran that badly last time. I don't think she ran great, but she made a bit of a wide middle move in there, and I don't think she ran any worse than Let Me Take This Call, who finished just ahead of her, and she's going to be a big price. I don't like anybody else. I do think the 2 will probably win this race, and most likely my bet will be a small win bet in the 4 and a 2-4 exacta. But I thought there was a chance off her last race that she could take another step forward. Second off, a little bit of a layoff, not much of a layoff, but a little bit of one, and maybe she could be the other horse. I don't have a strong opinion, but I just kind of wanted to take somebody kind of a wise guy horse.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't trust her for the whole Norm McKnight situation, and for the same reasons you mentioned, that's why I put First Forever second, because she got a very similar trip to World Riot last time. Wasn't quite as wide, but also trying to close into a very slow pace that was in a race that was dominated on the front end. The horse that really ran poorly there was Let Me Take This Call, who had no excuse. First Forever is dirtied up because she was against the kickback situation 3 back. She was commencing a rally when she got clipped heels 2 back, and she's not in as poor form as it seems.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think you have to worry, though, that you have to absolutely be sure you're making excuses for her, because you could also make the claim that her form has declined since she was claimed.
Yeah,
that's
be a
my concern. I'm going to watch this race at Gulfstream and watch the 10-horse win, who I made a huge bet on last time. Seems they're a little more aggressive today so far in the early stages. Race number 3. I found race number 3 very frustrating, and my ridiculous selections, chances, and my horse never wins, but I think it's a horse that's worth mentioning. It would have helped if Stonebreaker had stayed in there.
Yes.
Though, seeing the horse draw the rail, I would have also made my biggest bet of the day would have been that you liked Orbalicious. My second would have been that Linda would scratch Stonebreaker. I still think there's going to be enough pace in here, and we'll take a look, and I know we'll start with the Crazy 2 Ought to Even Speak, finishing second. This was a meltdown 2 races back, no doubt about it. But the horse did run. and lost to an actress horse who was not going to lose under any circumstances, even with the trouble. Like some moisture in the track, get some, and I thought this race could just fall apart at the end. I don't trust anybody in here, David.
I don't either. Look, I'm not going to knock this horse because
he's third.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like you don't think he can win.
He's going to be a huge price because he's always a huge price. He's going out for low-profile connections, a jockey that doesn't win that much. So I mean, all the recipe is there for this horse to be an overlay. It's just he's not a winning type. I get that his form is okay. I don't have a whole lot to add.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to sit here and sing his praises. I think he's a horse that will outrun his odds.
Yeah, that's
I
fair
thought he'd
enough.
be in the 15-1 range.
He's unlikely to finish last.
Right, he doesn't seem to win. My problem with your horse is he's only got 1 win rating and he's stock sitting second. I just don't trust him.
Well,
this last race was so bad.
Yeah, and I think the pace situation of this race is a little convoluted now that Stonebreaker's out of here because, I mean, Blinded Vision's a rocket ship, but we don't know what we're going to get from him off the layoff anymore because, frankly, I never liked this horse, and I think his last race was pretty phony, Blinded Vision, what I'm speaking
phony.
about. That was a speed-favoring day on a sloppy track against a horse that just heavy metal, a favorite who can't run anymore. So we'll see how many horses outrun Malibu Action in the early going. I don't want to see him closing from that far off the pace. What I will say is, with the exception of his last race, where it's not noted in the chart, but he broke about 1.5 to 2 lengths slowly, and that just totally negated his chances because that was a speed-favoring track. He couldn't get into the mix after that, and I'm just drawing a line through that effort.
But it was bad.
It was
a drop to the bottom for Linda, too.
It was bad, but the start was really poor, and I'm surprised they didn't catch it. And prior to that, he was just facing significantly better horses. Michelle Nevin claims him. I know Michelle Nevin's been in a slump, but her horses have been running reasonably well, just getting unlucky.
was so much the best yesterday. Yeah. I know he was 3 to 5, and I don't like to sit here and make excuses for 3 to 5 shots, but I mean, he ran tremendous in that race. It's just, he's a perfect example of when things are going bad.
Yeah, and we've all experienced that.
Right. It happens to trainers, it happens to bettors. You know, when things go bad, it just seems like everything you get unlucky, and he was a classic case of getting unlucky.
And then Massey Hall might take some money, but we have a stat for Norm McKnight. First after being claimed away from that barn. I mean, this is just as poor as it gets in a pretty large sample.
No, he's not a guy you want to claim from.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed when I see people claiming from him. He has a string that he's at Oaklander in the winter. And also, this horse ran for 7,500 for him, and he's never been on the dirt before. I didn't want this horse. What do you do with Winning Drive? I mean, I know you thought he had a shot last time. I think you liked him a little bit last time. I just don't know if he's much racehorse.
I liked him last time just because it's really weird for Jason Service to run a horse that's not, you know, 5 to 1 or lower in any race.
And to be aggressive with him.
Yeah, it was a bizarre spot. This is a horse who once had ability. That one race at Gulfstream back from last March would probably make him the winner here, but I don't know where that horse has gone these days.
I agree. I found this to be a very, very tricky race. So I went to my old friend, Too Hot to Even Speak, and I just hope that Eben Harkey just let him drop back in the field.
Hope it falls apart.
If the race falls apart a bit, he can come running at the end and get a piece. And that was really just my thinking. I was sort of mad at him for not picking that day he finished second, because I think I had him like 4th, and I thought he could get lucky.
Yeah.
Race number 4 is the race we've all been waiting for a long, long time. I do think, and I think, did I skip a race?
No, we're on the 4th.
Okay. They had the pick for the 5th up. I'm sorry. I do want to say, I think that Princess in Charge is the horse to beat in here. And I agree. She has been not very terrific. But maybe a little less distance will help her out. She kind of got caught up in the pace that sort of came apart a little bit in the late stages last time. I don't love her. I think she's best in here. And I knew you'd pick Orbalicious, so I didn't want to pick her on top.
Yeah, Princess in Charge. I think they just kind of overestimated what they had off Acclaim when she beat a pretty poor field at Churchill to break her maiden 3 back. And she's just now dropping back down to the level that she probably always should have been running at. We'll see if the turn back really helps her. I'm not that sure, because even though she's been forwardly placed on some races, she's not a horse that has that much speed. So we'll see. I have to take Orbalicious. This is a horse that I think actually last year showed more ability than is apparent. She was coming out of in her debut that race where everybody just ran faster coming out of that race. She broke her
last dirt race.
Yeah, and this is her last dirt
race.
Yeah, her last dirt race. Not only was she facing much tougher company, I mean, Figure It Out and Avelina have since gone on and been competitive against N1X allowance types, but Orbalicious, you saw she was off a little bit slowly in this race, was outrun early, and down the backstretch, I mean, it's not like they're walking up front, and for some reason, her rider's going to allow her to make this crazy premature move up into the race. I mean, as they're approaching the half-mile pole, it almost looks as if she's just going to take the race over and go on to lead the field, and then he gets into a tight spot as they break for the turn, and he's going to have to back out of there a little bit. But, I mean, these kind of backstretch moves rarely work out, especially in races that feature honest paces.
Yeah, I was joking with Dave before we came on the air that I knew he liked her this day, and I was teased him. I said, "Oh, you picked her when she broke her maiden, so you're going to continue to defend your opinion on her, till death do you part." And I remember why you liked her in this race, and I thought you were insane. And I was watching the race, and I thought, wow, David's horse got sort of a crazy ride in this race. And, she's going to back out from this point. Yeah. But she did run in here, and I agree with you. This was the race where I said to myself, I'm going to give David some credit. He's actually right. This filly is better than I thought she is. And once again, you look at her, and it doesn't really show. If you just look at the final figure and you look at, you look at I will say, you look at the running line, and the running line immediately says to you, if you were coming from out of town, this is the classic one, if you're handicapping race out of town, you don't watch, you see that running line, you say, I need to watch that replay. Yes. Because that's a very odd running line, you don't see that often. I don't disagree. Are you at all concerned that she's probably going to need one off the layoff? I don't worry about the distance because I'm not sure she's a horse that's better with more distance.
She won going 5.5, so I think she can get the distance. And
over Kathy's cause. I do want to point that out.
Well, yeah, but it's not
a perfect trip.
Yes, and her Beyers improved a little bit after that, but I think that was just due to natural maturity. I mean, the question I think you have to ask yourself, I mean, in addition to the layoff, is it a bad sign that David Donk was not running her as, say, a 10-to-1 shot in the 50,000 starter allowance or New York Bred N1X? He's running her for 16 as one of the favorites, and it's the winter time. You want to take advantage of these spots. What is she really worth at this point? I think it's a valid question, but also it might be a window into what he thinks of the horse at this point in time.
Yeah, the 16 bothers me because she's going to get claimed.
She probably is.
So in other words, you and I should probably claim because she is worth more than 16 based on her races. That worries me a little bit. But you know what? Maybe David's being realistic as well. She's got issues. She's been off the track for a while. Even though she may be a little bit better than she looks, what is she, a 64 Beyer horse? She's not an 80 Beyer horse.
No.
She's not winning a non-winners of one in reality.
Yeah, she'd be a long shot in those other races.
Right, so maybe David is just saying, you know what, she's got some issues, I got her back to the track. Could I run her a little bit higher? Maybe I could, but maybe I also need to run her where she can win. Are you at all worried about Appletini maybe scooting away from these?
A little bit.
I'm a little bit worried that could happen.
I don't love her races overall, but she's she's totally loose in this race. Right. Well, dazzling speed might be sent a little bit, although
we'll see.
We'll see what the two apprentices do. But yeah, of the speeds, she's the most trustworthy.
Quickly on Louis Cardenas. I'm very impressed with what I've seen from this guy. I'm going to say he's the best 10-pound bug rider I've ever seen so far.
The day that you were off, he guided an 8-to-1 shot home. Yeah, from off the pace.
Came up the rail.
I mean, he was behind a horse that was about to collapse for the entire running of the turn. He didn't panic, just waited, knew that he had the winner, and allowed the horse to find a seam in the stretch. And just, I mean, the poise and patience that he showed in that race is something you rarely see from a 10-pound bug. So I'm looking forward to see how he develops.
And that's not the first time he's done that. No. He did it with a horse. I don't know if the horse won or finished somewhere, but it's not always about winning and watching him ride. And that's what I've noticed. He doesn't panic.
No.
He doesn't, and that's one of the hardest things I think for young riders is, and it's understandable, they'll tend to, panic a little bit when they get in these situations. I'm impressed by what I've seen. We'll see what he does moving forward. Race number 5, another race where I just struggled mightily because I simply refused to pick this horse, Air on Fire on Top. Here he is finishing second last time. I'm sorry. This is a horse that lost at 5 cents to the dollar in a 3-horse field.
You're never going to let that go.
At Prairie Meadows. I'm never going to let that go. I know he likes moisture on the track. This horse has an odor about him. I will say, Linda waited, boy, didn't she?
She really did.
I mean, she timed this one, 182 days or something? I did the math the other day, because the reason the horse is running for the waiver, and it's 180 days. Linda waited to run for the waiver, and that's probably a good sign.
Yeah.
But, man, I got to tell you.
I sent in this stat for that very reason, because Linda is as shrewd as they come with horses like this. I mean, she knows she's got this horse in the barn. There probably was some issue after Saratoga, but I mean, this is the time of year that Linda just cleans up because of horses like this. And what this stat says to me, because if you look up this stat for almost any other trainer, it's going to be a really negative number. But Aqueduct in the winter is when Linda can win with these horses. The problem, obviously, is he's claimed from Jason Service. Right. He got good for Jason Service.
He wasn't a terrible horse before Jason had him, but he improved for Jason.
No, and he was a maiden for a very long time. He's 2 for 19 lifetime, not a horse that loves to win races. I'm not enthusiastic about betting this horse. I just couldn't find alternative, and I picked a lot of favorites on today's card because I just don't want to be picking long shots that I'm probably not going to be betting.
He's got to be an answer to a trivia question. horses that aren't stakes horses that have been 5 cents to the dollar twice in their careers.
At least he won one of them.
I've got him second. He's the horse to beat. I'll tell you the horse I really don't like either. I've got him fourth, and we both have him fourth, is Quick Entry. I am not a fan of this horse. I'll tell you something wild. Did you look up the stats for Brad Cox? 50% drop off the claim. He's 1 for 7.
I saw that.
It's amazing that he's basically run one horse a year off the claim that he has dropped this considerably. That's pretty amazing considering how many horses he must claim a year.
Also, 50% drops on dirt in general in a 42-horse sample. His ROI is $1.13. So he's not winning with these massive drop downs.
He might win. I'm not really a fan. I didn't want to take them. I thought about, it's funny, you have the line discrepancy, and I'm sure you're probably right. The Call the Cat 15-1 and Ilios Milos 9-2. Call the Cat beat the horse the last time they met. Now, Ilios Milos probably moved too soon in that race, but he did finish ahead of him. So I'd actually prefer to take Call the Cat, though. I'm not sure. I mean, I've got Ilios Milos higher up as well. Okay, here's my flat rate argument, and I'm not, believe me, I'm not in love with this horse. My argument is I didn't want the 4 and 5. So once you don't want the 4 and 5, the race becomes open. And I'll tell you something about flat rate. He did not run as badly as it looks last time.
No.
I know it wasn't a particularly good race, and I will absolutely agree with you, assuming Air and Fire runs a better race today. But he actually held fairly well, considering he was coming off a long layoff for Rudy, who doesn't have great numbers off layoffs. And I thought his race, while not great, wasn't that bad. And I thought he got the right stalking post on the outside. He'll be a fair enough price. And he was the best alternative I could come up with. I don't love him, but I could make enough of a case for him in a race where I didn't want to make a case for the others.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a horse I like at all, but I mean, I'm not going to blame you for trying to find an alternative to Air on Fire, who's probably going to be a very short price. I just couldn't find anybody I wanted to bet against him with.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't love him either. I was making a case for a horse to try to beat Air on Fire, and he's the best case that I can.
The one other horse I do want to use underneath is Desert Lights. I know this horse was a vet scratch recently, and that's probably not a good sign. Actually scratched, coming to the gate, rather. But this horse didn't get the right trip. He never likes a sloppy track that much last time. 2 back, he had this 10-pound bug ride around going a distance that's too far. Maybe his form is just falling apart for Randy Persaud, but he's the one horse that has consistent back races that could make him a player in here, and he's going to get the right.
Gary Gullo, but
for Gary Gullo, but he's going to get the right pace setup. So I wouldn't just totally dismiss him at a big price.
All right. Race number 6. I'm not sure how much conversation we need to have in race number 6. We'll take a look at the number 5, Bridlewood Cat. It says a lot that you and I both have Posse needed 4th, because you and I have bet her on plenty of occasions. We got lucky to get her for 2nd, get her money back last time. I'm not going to try to beat this horse. I don't see any reason to. No,
the one negative that you can point out in this race is that she really had the best of it against her main rival, Newly Minted, who would have made this very close, if not beaten Bridlewood Cat, if she hadn't gone left. But Newly Minted is a really good horse who would also be about 3 to 5 in this race.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't know how much of a negative that really is. She's drawn well outside of the other speed, Honey I'm Good, so she can even stalk that horse if Junior Alvarado is really aggressive with Honey I'm Good. And she's just supposed to beat this field.
And I agree with you. Piedi Bianchi is the interesting horse. Fair Regis was not good last time. She's the logical 2nd horse, but maybe the 6 can re-find her once, promising form.
Well, the thing with Piedi Bianchi is I don't know why they keep trying to run this horse in route races. She's just a sprinter, and I mean, the fact that they ran her in the Alabama off that return race at Belmont just kind of blows my mind.
That was a clever spot for her.
And then they tried her in routes after that. I know she won a minor race at Indiana Downs, but she's a sprinter, and Carlos Martin, I think, is running her in the right kind of spot.
Jesus. I made a big score on Perfect Miss that day. That was Jeremiah.
Yeah, she was a big price, like 8-1.
Yeah. Wow.
Cipriana was that nutcase horse.
For
Mark Hennig.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. God, I remember that race now. Anyway, race number 7. Occasionally, you see races you actually won money on. It's so rare. I thought the Ruthless Camp, a fun race. I'm Sorry, Love of My Heart, came out of the race. You and I ended up agreeing. We talked about it yesterday. While we have the same
exact same
order. Well, with the one scratch, they're the right horses. I'll let you talk about Miss Marissa. I think we agree on her.
Yeah, I mean, with Love of My Heart coming out, I think Miss Marissa is just the horse to beat. And the knock against her is to say that her form has fallen apart since she broke her maiden. But let's be realistic. They tried her in the Grade 1 Frisette off a very bias-aided maiden win that was never as good as it looked. So she was never going to be too competitive in that Frisette. And then last time out, who's to say that she really wants to go mile mile and an eighth, and she's just not as good as those horses anyway. Furthermore, Dylan Davis was trying to be aggressive coming out of the gate. The field just came over. That was that congested run into the first turn, and she got shuffled back, had to be put 4 wide for the rest of the race. She was just never going to be competitive that day. I think she's just probably a horse that wants to go one turn and probably is more comfortable going sprint distances. She even ran well in that maiden race behind British Idiom at Saratoga. She's drawn outside of the other speed, so Junior Alvarado can just stalk with her if Cruisin' Dan's goes, and I just think she's going to trip out as the best horse.
I think she's just the best horse, too. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I think she's the best horse. I want to kind of pick our horse, the 5 Cruisin' Dan's. I still can't believe we lost this photo. This is about as bad a bob as you're going to lose your entire life. We both bet this horse, and, you know, Eric was doing the right thing. He just kind of got put into a tough spot. But ultimately, we're supposed to cash last time in an easier spot. She might win today, but I just thought the 9 horse, Miss Marissa, was better.
Yeah, I don't think a whole lot of the field that she's coming out of, though I will say we don't believe her, who was third, did come back to run a little faster the other day in that race where Linda had the big favorite and the Danny Garkin horse won. Yeah, so we'll see. I'm not sure how good their winner really is because this was her first start on dirt. At least Cruisin' Dan's finished better that day than she has in her prior start, so that gives me a little bit of confidence that she might be able to get the 7 furlongs, but that's the real concern.
Right, and you've got these 2 horses that are both private purchases coming from Maryland in Panthera ONCA, who looks to me to be woefully slow. The thing I like more about Wiggle and Jiggle is that Jerry Brown's Rising Graph thought enough to buy this horse, and it's going to Linda Rice, but Brad Cox, shockingly, does not have great numbers off of these switches. I've seen these numbers before.
Yeah, this is a shocking statistic because you would think he does really well with these types because he does great off the claim, but it's just a totally different story with trainer switches. Her one fast race was her debut at Penn National. It's hard to gauge how good that field was, and if the runner-up is really the kind of horse that's supposed to earn that kind of speed figure, her subsequent 2 races at Laurel just don't make her a major contender here.
If you had to subtract a number off the top of your head from every Penn National figure when they run in New York, would it be more or less than 12?
If less, not a whole lot less.
Yeah, I have almost never seen random Penn National big figs come to New York get duplicated. I'm not saying they're wrong. They just don't run back to them. As far as Wiggle and Jiggle, I respect Jerry, and he must have seen something to have bought into this horse, or bought this horse, because they seem to be the only owner. So out of respect for him, I actually considered her. But ultimately, she, too, is not running against much down there.
No, her maiden win, too, back in $16,000 claimer was against nobody, but she was visually impressive that day. The horse that beat her last time, Naughty Thoughts, is...
She's okay.
She's pretty good.
She also beat her like a drum.
Yeah, she's also run 14 times as a 3-year-old, which is kind of amazing at this point in the year. But if she were in this race, she'd be about 7-2. So I think that at least makes Wiggle and Jiggle somewhat interesting.
I'm extremely resentful to her sire. Do you know why?
Shaking it up.
He's the horse who beat Central Banker. In
that's right.
Now he got his revenge. Central Banker in the
he
Churchill race.
He certainly did. And
Stud. He's Central Banker, one of the great studs in the game. He's the best New York bred stallion I can think of out there. Race number 8. Pirelli Tower. We'll go in the time machine and go back and look at Pirelli Tower 14 months ago. I don't know, man.
I was trying to remember. I think I picked Scrutinize in this race because he was the only dirt horse in a race full of turf horses. He actually ran okay. I think he was 13-1, closing for third here. Yeah. But that's kind of an indictment of Pirelli Tower's effort here because Scrutinize is not much horse. Neither is the winner. This was just a field of turf horses who were struggling to handle the dirt. I mean, I would not want to bet Pirelli Tower off this race coming back off a 14-month layoff.
No. I've got him second because I don't respect anyone else. And I've got Implied Volatility third. That's how little I think of it. I mean, you went and I went in a similar way. Implied Volatility's last race, on the horrendous scale, the meter blew up.
Yes.
That was actually an inside speed track where he was the inside speed in his last race.
I mean,
how did he run?
The pace didn't, I mean, I guess the pace was fast enough and it did fall apart, so maybe that's somewhat of an excuse just if you're taking that race in isolation. Yeah.
The winner was stalking. And if you took that race in isolation, it was the first race that day, you'd have said, oh, it was a dead rail. It turned out to be a very strong inside track that day. Mm-hmm. So unless you think the track significantly changed from race 1 to race 2, I mean, this was a pitiful effort. You've got Hudson Overpass on top. You are a stronger man than I am.
Well, I mean, we basically have the exact same opinion here. It's just I'm picking the logical horse for the same reason that you are, and you're picking the crazy horse.
Right. I want to lose at a price.
Yeah.
David wants to lose at a shorter price.
I mean, look, I don't love Hudson Overpass, but he's drawn well on the outside. He's got a rider who I think is not going to cause the horse to take as much money as he should because people aren't on to him yet, but he's going to give this horse a decent ride. And, I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of heart in the lane, but I'm hoping nobody wants to pass him.
As far as Grotto's swing, I understand, you know. I didn't just do it to make Gaston Grant happy as much as I like him. If you were to just bet a horse off their best last race, I think you would bet him. Is that fair?